Welcome to another episode of the All Tens Podcast. I'm your co-host, Josh West. With me, as always, Clay Harris. And today, Clay, we're continuing talking about the foundational tools. And today, it's the meeting pulse. First, for our listeners, can you just outline what we mean holistically by the meeting pulse?
Yeah, sure, Josh. Meeting pulse. So when we talk about meeting pulse in EOS, we're talking about like establishing the rhythms of getting the right things done at the right intervals with your team. If everything's important all the time, like it's really hard to create focus. So when we talk about meeting pulse, we're talking about the weekly L10 meetings that you're doing, the quarterly meetings that you're doing, where you're kind of lifting your head up and setting priorities for the next 90 days. You were talking about the annual meetings that we do, where we kind of take an even bigger step back and look at the VTO, make sure we're still in alignment, make any changes that need to be made, maybe set a new 1-year plan. But the meeting pulse is all of that together, right? Where we're putting things in the right place so that we know when things are going to come back up for us. And as EOS implementers, we take responsibility, accountability for running great annual and quarterly meetings, but we hand over the weekly pulsing, that L10 weekly meeting, over to our leadership teams and send them out bravely into the world, right?
Absolutely.
And so when we do that, we kind of teach those rhythms, but we also just kind of take a quick step back and say, what makes for a great meeting? And a great meeting has 5 characteristics, and those, you're going to grade me on this. You're going to tell me if I get it right, okay? First thing is that they're the same time and the same day, right? So that you know when they're coming. Third and fourth things are start on time and end on time. I'm guilty of being not great at this when I was in the integrator seat running EOS in my business. And fifth thing, they run the same agenda. So same day, same time, start on time, end on time, same agenda. That's what makes for a great meeting. And when we start talking about L10s, we have a pretty specific agenda, Joshy, right?
Indeed, we do. And I think that you mentioned it there. One of the powers in it is that everyone knows what to expect when we're working off of the same agenda. It's not that, oh, well, there's a meeting called. And one of the reasons why lots of people don't like meetings, and another reason that they're also not very effective, is that there's simply no agenda to them whatsoever. Whereas in our world, that is a very set agenda, there's expectations, and there's even work that needs to be done ahead of time. So after we segue into that meeting, the first portion of that meeting is for reporting purposes. So prior to that, we've created a great scorecard with measurables on it. We've set our biggest priorities in terms of rocks for the quarter, and we're always looking to report on things and make sure that they're on track. Also, the most important people in our lives are our employees and our customers. So we're also checking to make sure that there's no issues with them as well. And so for that reporting period, it's happening every single time, week over week, and just checking in on those things, because also there's not a lot of discussion required to make sure that we've got them on goal. We've already done that work.
When I first learned about EOS, the number one reason that I was like, this is for us, is because of that first point you made. That's like, it was wild west every time you walked into a meeting as to what it was going to be, and it was based on how I was feeling. Sometimes it was based on the last customer email that came in, good or bad, right? It was just chaotic. And so 100% same agenda, giving people clear expectations of what they're getting ready to walk into. And even more than that, understanding of how they're going to know whether or not things are going well with the reporting section at the very beginning of an L10. 100% the value of people not being surprised is super high. I'll tell you the other thing, especially in that first part, after we segue to scorecard, rocks, headlines, is that it saves a bunch of time outside of the meeting. Like, we set a scorecard, we set rocks outside of the meeting. We're always paying attention to headlines. But instead of on Tuesday morning, someone running down the hallway screaming about client problem A, or someone being like, I just got a number in and it's below target, on Wednesday at 3, we just know that, like, things happen in business. That's actually the point, is that things are happening all the time. But we know that when we run a great meeting, it's going to be Mondays at 1 p.m. We're all getting together and we're going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk about the big rocks. We're going to talk about the headlines that have come in over the past week. And so we don't have to go run around and scream. We can just know that Mondays, 1 o'clock, or whenever your meeting is, we have time dedicated to go over this stuff. And that's kind of the outline of the meeting, like the things that you don't even think about when you're running great meetings, that you're creating all this other time to go do your job. Anyway.
Well, and as you move through that agenda, right? After we get through that, we've instituted a bit of accountability where we're checking on the to-dos from the prior week and making sure that when we walked out of there with action items, we're verifying that those got done because we solved issues. And then we're finally moving on and trying to spend most of the time in our meeting with that issue solving track, or IDSing those issues, identifying, discussing them, and solving them. But even when you like kind of come up to the 1,000-foot view of the level 10 agenda, there's really two things happening. You just have different ways of extracting issues and identifying them in the business and getting them all on that list. And then it's simply prioritizing them and solving them one at a time. So yes, there's multiple steps to it, but a lot of times when I explain it, we're extracting issues, we're solving issues. You could
100%.
call it the issue solving meeting if you wanted to. And on a personal level, this was what really sold me on EOS, is when I was finally in a position to be with other decision makers in the room, and we weren't going to sweep something under the rug or run from it or hide from it, and we weren't going to talk about it for the 7th time. When it was something that was in our way and bothering us, we were going to get to a resolution and really get some action items going. Because I think another reason that we see out here with a lot of people complaining about meetings and a lot of people don't like them is that the number one thing that happens in them is that it's just a lot of talking, just a lot of discussion, and it takes all different forms. There's politicking, grandstanding, people taking things off on tangents, people complaining about something, right? But then ultimately, if everyone gets up and then leaves that room and no one walked out with a to-do or an action item, or however you'd like to name that, then you've got to reflect and ask yourself, well, what really happened? And all it was just a bunch of people sitting around talking, and it was a bunch of hot air. And then if no one left and then actually went and did something and solved an issue, then the next time you call a meeting, and also, if you do so without an agenda, I think you can expect the same result, is that you're going to continue to have those same conversations over and over, and you're just on the hamster wheel, and then everybody's frustrated because nothing's getting done. You'll learn to love meetings whenever you can bring an issue to it and actually get it solved.
Right. I was actually just meeting with a client this morning who was kind of the other side of the problem, which was like, I'm not sure we talk about everything, or is like, we don't talk about anything and I just make decisions and just tell them what to do. And so there's this other part of IDS, right, of identifying the issue at the root. Most of what we say fairly often is that the issues list is generally symptoms, and we got to do a little bit of identification to get underneath it, understand what caused it, solve the issue at the root. Then we discuss it where we want to hear from everybody. You got to weigh in to buy in. We want to hear from everyone who's in that meeting to see like kind of what they think, because we want to make sure everyone feels heard. But then, and so that's what this person I was talking with this morning was like, I don't talk to anybody about it. They just tell me what their issues and I tell them what to do. And I'm like, well, they don't buy in. Like, they're not like, they're not all in. You're just being a dictator, and that'll work to a certain size and then it'll stop working. But
yeah, because what you're engendering there is dependence.
Right. 100%.
They're waiting for you. So the next time that person has a problem or an issue, they're likely going to come into your office with that issue.
And then you're going to be like, I'm frustrated. Why does everybody keep coming to me?
And then also, as we can see, like, we're not getting any more hours in the day. So as you continue to create more and more dependence upon you, And without you solving the problem or giving the direction to someone and no one's got any autonomy, I think we can see how you're going to hit a ceiling pretty soon in that
There's a
business because
reason.
it's all going to bottleneck and stop at you.
Right. And there's a reason why like that identify part of IDS is so powerful. It's because when you're asking good questions, trying to understand the root cause, the rest of the team hears the questions that you're asking. The rest of the team starts to like understand the way your brain is working. If you're the founder and you have 37 questions to get to the root of an issue, there's value not just in the solve, there's value in everyone else just hearing the way that your brain works. You can't write that stuff down. It's the power of like doing that out loud and with your team is kind of hard to measure, right? It's kind of magical when it starts working well. But the thing that I actually see more often is that leadership teams kind of stink at like making that last step in the IDS, which is like solving. They can be better at asking some questions, identifying the root. They're already good at talking a lot about issues, discussing the issue. But then when it comes to the solve, sometimes I see leaders get timid again, right? And they think like, oh, well, I don't want to hurt feelings, or I'm not exactly sure what we should do. But that's our job as leaders, is just to make a decision on the right next thing to do. And that's often the solve. It's a who, what, when, right? What's the outcome we need? Who's going to do it? When are they going to do it by? That's the solve. And it doesn't have to be a boiled ocean to do. It can be just what is the next right thing that's going to get us closer to solving the issue. We might not get all the way there, but in the next week, what is the thing that we're going to get done? If this needs to come back on the issues list, guess what? We have a list. You can put it on there. So that, man, IDS sounds like really simple, but there's so much nuance in IDS in the L10 meeting.
Yeah, you really do have to finish the drill there. And you can't just be left at the goal line. And so I coach my teams, and particularly those that facilitate those meetings, that as you're IDSing issue, once you've agreed on, okay, we all generally agree that is the root cause of the issue, we take in any of the discussion that's relevant to that. And then when it's time to move on, the two questions are, okay, have we heard everything that's relevant? Let's close out the discussion portion. And then, as you alluded to, I just say, who's going to do what by when? That's it. And now, let's get that taken down. And then really to really, like we say, finish the drill there. Then when we get to the end of the meeting, we're going to recap all the to-dos. Okay. So what was the task and who's going to do it? And then when we get into the meeting that next week, after we get through the reporting, that's where the accountability really comes to bear, because then we're going to check on those to-dos, and then it's simply done or not done. And we also coach our teams that a high-performing team that has true accountability is going to get about 90% or more of their to-dos done on a weekly basis. And if you continue to show up in that meeting and the to-dos are continuously not done and you're not getting them done at a high percentage, chances are you've got an accountability problem. Now, the other thing that you may have going on is you bit off a little bit more than you can chew, and it's actually a rock and it's not a to-do. So, a 3-week to-do by definition is a rock, but otherwise, if you're not getting those things done regularly, then you do have an accountability problem. And you've also got to ask yourself, if that's not being addressed right there in the moment, then you're just encouraging more of that behavior. And then you're not getting the value out of that meeting where we extracted those issues. We recognized what was most important and what was in our way. We went through the time and the trouble to discuss it and get to a solve, and we got all the way there. And then we didn't hold somebody accountable for getting it done. What a shame. So really got to make sure that those things get done.
I was listening to a video, a recording of Mike Payton, who was a former visionary at US Worldwide. And he's talking about to-dos. Great teams get 90% of their to-dos done. And he said, if you aren't doing that, you're either over-promising or under-delivering. And he just says, stop. Like, get better. Be better. Do what you say you're going to do. So we've taken through a segue on the L10, scorecard, rocks, headlines, a sort of reporting, to-dos, the little accountability mechanism built into the L10. Majority of our time spent IDSing issues, and then you kind of hinted at it, but bring us through the conclude on an L10.
So first, we're going to recap the to-dos, right? We just put in all this time and effort, And let's make sure that everyone sounds off that when something's been assigned to you, okay, here's your to do, Clay, and you say, got it. So we go through that also so that, there's sort of that official notification so that if we get in next week and someone says, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. It's like, no, I know that we checked. Everybody sounded off. They said that they had it. Then there's cascading messages. So there could be information that's coming out of that meeting or a decision that gets made. And now we need to inform some other people throughout the organization on what that is. So what are the cascading messages? Who's going to tell whom what? And so we've got to make sure that we're communicating because the rest of our staff isn't mind readers. And if we've decided something in that meeting, we need to make sure that that's properly communicated out. And then finally, the last thing that we do is we rate the meeting. And that brings us full circle to why we name the agenda the level 10 agenda. Because as we rate things on a scale of 1 to 10, and I feel like most of the time when I start to work with a client, they rate their internal meetings around a 3 or a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. Unhappy as most people are. And so we're keeping everyone honest on how well did we do in this meeting? And we're aspiring to run a level 10 meeting where everyone is scoring at a 10. That's also where the name of our podcast comes from, the All Tens, as we always are rating all of our meetings. And so that's how you conclude a meeting and continue to run that same agenda, keep those circles connected regularly, extract the issues that are in the way of your business, and get them out of your way so that you can accomplish your goals.
100%. That's the meeting pulse. That's the 4th of 5 foundational tools. Before we wrap up here, Josh, any nuggets to share with the listeners?
Commit. It's really simple. I used to take a yoga class, and the teacher would say, the hardest part's over. You showed up. And so when it comes to the level 10 agenda, look, you're going to skin your knees up. It's a meeting. You're working through issues. Not everything's going to go perfect, but at least just make the commitment and keep the commitment. Put it on the calendar, show up every week. And that's better than, trying to run a perfect meeting every 3rd week. So that'd be my nugget. What do you got, Clay?
That's a good one. The thing that I would say about Eltons is they should be time savers for you as a leader. We talk about like from chaos to clarity as like a little EOS tagline often, right? Like this is the thing where we're organizing that chaos into a really comprehensive meeting agenda that should give you everything you need to know about the business. And so if you find yourself kind of feeling like the L10 is just adding more meeting time, there's probably something not working right. It should be a time saver. And if it's not, like, go in for a tune-up, right? Talk with someone else who's running EOS, reach out to me or Josh. Like, it's time for a tune-up. And the kind of correlate to that, kind of a second nugget, is that just like everything else in EOS, it's we're an alignment tool in order for us to go faster, further, stronger, like all those sorts of things. Like the whole point of the L10 is for us to be seeing the world in the same way together. Like we come in every week with all the things that are going on, but we leave every week kind of understanding what the most important things are, what we're going to do to accomplish them, whether or not we're healthy. You should be leaving that L10 aligned, feeling like more united than you were 90 minutes prior. So those are my 2 little nuggets. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Take them home, Clay.
I appreciate everyone listening to the All Tens podcast. Let's rate the meeting real quick. Joshy, what do you rate the meeting today?
I'm going to give it a strong 10.
Yeah, same. 10 here. If you want to rate the meeting, good news, your podcast player or YouTube has feedback mechanisms we would encourage you to utilize. Please like, share, comment. If there's something you want us to talk about, let us know. Hit us up. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify. We're all over the place. But most of all, we really appreciate you listening. Until next time, I'm Clay. He's Josh. And we'll see you next time.